Welcome to Over 50, starting over everyone. I'm Barry Edwards.
And I'm Merle Garrison.
And tomorrow is it the 20th anniversary of September 11th? Tomorrow?
Yes, it is.
That's
amazing. 20 years.
That's really amazing.
It's a big milestone here.
It is. Where were you when September 11th hit? The towers.
Great question. I was. It's like everyone remembers exactly where they were, just like it was yesterday. It was interesting because I was living in Texas at the time, and I had an office in Austin, which was about 90 miles away. And I'd been traveling every day back and forth, and I had asked to come in late on September 11th. So I had a couple hours to sleep in, and Anne-Marie and I had just gotten married a few days before that, on September 1st. And she had left for work already. So I was by myself, and my pager went off, and it woke me up, and I read it, and it was Rex Lee. And he was saying, pray for our country. The Pentagon's been hit. And I was like, I woke up. But the Pentagon's been hit. What?
Now, wait a minute. The way I remember it was, okay,
first. It wasn't in that order. That's just the first thing I saw. And I was like,
so the two planes already hit then.
Yeah. But I didn't know that. So I turn on the TV. Wow. I run to the TV like, what? The Pentagon's been hit. And when the TV fades in, because that's what happened back then, the TV would fade in. Right. I'm seeing that one of the either one or both towers were already burning.
Yeah.
And I remember just I was so shocked, Barry, because of course I didn't know this was happening. And I remember just yelling out, no, I could almost cry right now. I loved the World Trade Center. I had posters of the World Trade Center all over my room growing up. I was fascinated with it. And I just yelled out, no. And my knees gave out, and I was on the floor just crying, no. It was so surreal. I couldn't even believe I just could not believe what I was seeing. And when I saw that first tower go down, Barry, it was like being kicked in the gut.
I think we all felt like that.
Terrible moment.
Yeah.
What about you, man?
I was coming home from a networking group. So it was probably about 9-ish in the morning, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And I heard on the radio that this plane went into the World Trade Center. And so I think most of us thought at that point that this was just a horrible accident.
Right.
But boy, by the time I got my 15-minute drive home, the second plane, I think, hit before I even got in the house. And that's when I was like, oh my God, this is a terrorist attack. And I went in and turned the TV on immediately. And then I was just glued. So then it took a while before the first tower fell. And that was just crushing because I couldn't believe that could happen. That entire tower could just crumble like that from
the way it went down.
Yeah. Everything about it was surreal for sure. So I was, I was supposed to come home and start working. I couldn't peel myself from the TV with just these realizations that was coming over me. But I'll tell you what, Merle, I'll never forget when that plane went into the Pentagon. I got sheer terror went through me because I said to myself, oh my God, the world, the way we know it is done. It's done. I didn't know it was going to stop at that point. I thought, oh God, what's next? My mom called me and said, do you want to come out here? Thinking Cleveland's going to get bombed. But I was like, I'm way away from anything that anybody's going to worry about. But I got to tell you, it was terrifying. I think everybody pretty much would probably relate to what I'm saying here. I'm kind of confused about all the feelings that I had all at once. It's just so overwhelming. And we mentioned a few weeks ago, about the beautiful part of it is that this country really, we all came together for like all of a month or two.
Yeah.
You know, it just felt like we were all Americans and we were brothers and sisters. Everybody wanted to do the right thing.
Yes.
And it's a shame that things have gone the way they've gone in this country, that we've kind of given everything away. And what I mean is kind of like our freedoms, our freedom of thought. So 9/11 was really, it was before social media, because there's all that manipulation that's played into our current situation. And even mainstream media back then was pretty damn normal, don't you think?
Would you say, Barry, that 9/11 was really an inflection point in American history, and that the 20 years since then have been really all related to that change?
No, that's really interesting. What I do know is when we were closer to it, now that we're 20 years away from it, your perspective kind of changes. But when we were closer to it, I remember thinking, damn, we went through the excesses of the 80s to go into the recession of the 90s and downsizing and stuff like that in businesses, to just seeing us turning the corner with the economy. And then 9/11 happens and we take this deep slide backwards. It took us a long time to me, it seemed like a long, slow time crawling out of it.
Yeah,
did it seem like that? And
it did.
Yeah. So the world really started changing really at the turn of the century, which is obviously very close to 9/11. That's when the internet started to become something. It was around 2006 when database driven sites, WordPress sites, what I specialize in these days is became popular. And so now we're communicating on these, where before that, they used to just be, you look up stuff. It's like looking up a brochure. That's what a website used to be.
Exactly.
Like. The entire web was like that.
Yeah, it was.
Actually, and that was kind of more fun for me because I could get found pretty easy. The web is so congested now. It's but so it was around 2006 where all this database driven, the web became very database driven. That spun social media, but social media started really taking foothold around 2010. Facebook got very popular at that point.
Yeah.
And the world really changed.
2011 is really when the smartphones started to skyrocket in sales. And of course you had Facebook and other social media on all of those phones, and we start to see the world dramatically changing. I wanted to also point out that 9/11 started our surveillance society that we now live in.
You are so right.
And we really got used to it. I mean, it was almost like it was a sudden thing. It was a crisis. We need to lock this down. We need to make sure no terrorists are lurking around. We're going to be spying on everything. We're going to be listening in. And we just said, okay, well, we'll do whatever. We will gladly sacrifice our freedoms in order for safety. It's really interesting that was a predominant thought at the time. And when you take a look at our documents, our founding documents, Barry, what you'll find is our founding fathers saying over and over to beware of this type of a situation of limiting freedoms during times of crisis.
And coincidentally, we're facing that once again, a parallel right now. So you're referring to with the 9/11 thing, the Patriot Act. And, and all of a sudden it was around that time, we became aware of the NSA, and that's something. I bet you there's other agencies out there too that we don't know of still.
For sure.
CIA, then you get the FBI, or did the FBI come first, then the CIA?
The FBI came first, and then the CIA.
Yeah, so then we needed a CIA on top of that, and now we need an NSA on top of that, and that there's other deeper stuff going on there as well.
There's got to be. And I mean, just during the time that we've done our show, we found out that the post office has they actually got involved in
post
investigating
office.
us, right? Like that's so
it's kind of like abusing the IRS too.
It is like that, and we as a society have generally accepted this as okay. when it's really not. It's a slippery slope, and we're seeing this thing playing out every day.
Right, and it's because the government is so big. You feel like you can't fight City Hall as it goes. But the parallel that is going on right now is all the big headlines are all about, and it's always Biden up to something, but mandating that all federal employees get vaccinated, and then pushing for all companies over, I'm just off the top of my head, all companies over 100 employees as well. And that I just wanted to throw that out for you. I have mixed feelings on it, always have, because I want freedom to come first with us always. But on the other hand, we have a pandemic going on, and we have an FDA approved vaccination for it. I really would like to see more people get vaccinated for sure. But again, freedom first.
Yeah, I think that's a big call right there, is freedom first, because this is exactly what the founders warned us about, is losing our freedoms. This is the fastest way to lose your freedom is government overreach during a crisis. And we're seeing that all the time right now. I think the rather than the government coercing people into action, because that's not going to cause people to feel a sense of peace about anything, especially when it comes to their healthcare. But I think it's more important that our government facilitate conversations with our medical community. And
the problem with that is you got Fauci at the head of that, and nobody believes
Fauci's not at the head of that, though. He's a bureaucrat. He's not the head of our medical community. He's a head of medicine in our government. There's a big difference there. I'm talking about your primary care physician. The person that you go to that knows your medical history, that knows what works in your body. Not everybody's body is the same. I think that there would be a lot more trust around this whole situation if this were actually in the hands of the actual medical community, not the government. I think that the government is one of the most mistrusted organizations on earth, and it should be.
They earn that.
They earn it every day. And then when they push something really, really hard like this, they've got a track record of being untrustworthy during those kinds of times. And so the harder they push, the more untrustworthy they seem to appear. And especially when you're pushing with such an angry type of facade. And we'll talk about this. I know we don't want to get right into politics, but dividing the people the way that, in making the people, the citizens, mistrust each other and become scared of each other and us and them. That should never be what a president ever does. I remember this president actually saying that he was going to be a unifier.
That's such BS.
The speech I saw yesterday, I don't know if you saw this or not. We'll come back to it.
I did not.
But, it was the worst speech I've ever heard an American president give in my life. I study these speeches. This was the most divisive speech I've ever heard. It was almost warlike tones towards the unvaccinated yesterday. And in the very same day, the administration praised the Taliban. And so,
oh my God,
and talked about how professional they are.
He's on fire. Sorry, people. My dog is going crazy.
Look at him. He's eating your plant back there.
Charlie, stop.
Look, he doesn't care. Look at him. He's on.
I know.
You're doing a podcast. You'll get back to that pretty soon.
He's used to the sound of this because when I leave, I put on a podcast for him, so he has our voices there.
Oh, right.
He
loves this.
He does. Yeah, he's on fire right now.
He's a part of the podcast.
Yes. So I, along the lines of being so divided, to that end, this amazes me when it comes to this. And so I sent you that link about all the buzz going on about Joe Rogan coming down with COVID, and he kicks it in 2 days. I'm going to watch what I say here.
You really do have to watch out. But
I said Rogan, and that's going to get us
we could just say the drug.
And there's that, right?
Yes.
So he kicks it in 2 days, but he's a big health nut, and
yes, he is
huge in exercise and nutrition and supplements and all that. So he was never worried. Now he was going to get the vaccine way back months ago, but he when he went to go get it, there was a scheduling conflict. I don't remember what, and then at that point he's like, "Oh, heck with it. Who cares?" Because I'm not really that worried about it anyway. Because he said his whole family had it and he didn't get it. And
wow.
Yeah, so he finally gets the vid and kicks it in 2 days. He's back in the gym, and boy, did that piss off the left. Now, isn't that something? They wanted, I mean, think about that. They wanted the worst for him to make a point. So it made their point, which is always live in fear, let the government tell you what to do, and conform. That's really what they're all about. And so he goes and he goes and kicks that in 2 days. And dog, stop it. Come here. Charlie, come here. Come on. Oh my God.
Look at him.
So anyways,
that must taste really good.
You see in the reports about Rogan, and people on the left aren't going to watch Rogan, and he does all his very best to remain unbiased, and he has all these different kind of guests on. It's all about the guests, and he's got people from the left, people from the right, people in the middle, journalists, scientists, a lot of MMA fighters, but he stays really unbiased about stuff, and he just stays curious. He asks questions that he wants to hear. So my point is, all the mainstream media now, they're calling him conservative talk show podcast host.
Okay,
he's not conservative.
I mean, that's the first I've ever heard anybody say that he was conservative.
He's very liberal.
Yeah, because I was a little confused when you first started talking about this, because I always saw him as liberal, a classic liberal.
Absolutely.
Not a leftist. He's classic liberal.
Right. And his parents are hippies. He grew up that way, super liberal. But man,
they're labeling him as a conservative now because of his beliefs around COVID.
Yeah, if you're not totally on board with 100% of their program, then all of a sudden you're conservative or far right. I'm sure that I could find Quora articles and stuff where they're calling them far right, like they do Jordan Peterson.
Far right. I mean, it's sort of like the term conspiracy theory. If you just say, "Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist," you've stolen that person's credibility. If you say they're far right, you've stolen their credibility.
Now you don't have to listen to them or debate them.
So, that guy's just far right. Just
dismiss.
Pretend they're a non-person, which is basically what happens with
that. Is exactly what happens. So it's infuriating.
Yeah, it is.
So the part about being divisive, and it even comes full circle all the way to 9/11. So much has changed in that short amount of time. 20 years isn't much. But people that have grown up during that time, that are around 20 years old right now, they've come up in an indoctrinated world.
They really have. And here's another aspect of that, and we're seeing this today, is the battle that our federal government has had with the states and really trying to overpower the authority of the states. And 9/11 was a big impetus to make that happen, because we needed to have a very unified front against, of course, our enemies. But then what we did was we implemented nationwide restrictions that really gave the federal government the perception that they had power over all of our decisions and everything that we do. And that's just not how our country was founded. It's not how our Constitution is built. The power of this country actually comes from the states. The states founded the federal government. They would never have put a federal government in place that would usurp their powers. You're making the best point of the morning so far.
I think this is the biggest problem we have going in this country is the federal government taking on too much power. And I say that this can appeal right to liberals, and even people a little left of liberals. Never get through to the far left, but They always like to pull out the Scandinavian countries as some kind of example of utopia. The number one, and I've done some research along these lines too, and the number one difference that I can point out right there, how we cannot even be compared to the Scandinavian countries, is because they're so small and homogenized.
Absolutely.
They're so small. So they're like a single state here in the United States.
Yeah, a small one.
With very closed borders. Mm-hmm. That's a very important thing to say. They want to keep themselves homogenized. They're all on the same page. That dog, I'm going to kill this dog. Hey, dog. Hey, come here. Come here. So to the point of our federal government, so people want to make the United States based on a model from the Scandinavian countries. You can't. The best way to do that, to implement that, is to treat the states, all 50 of them, give them their power back and see which ones, because they're so different. And so if they are allowed to be more agile and geez, man, I'm going to tranquilize this dog. But if the states are allowed to be more agile and governing, I think that we could then find individual really good models. Like it'll come and go. Go ahead, run with it.
What's really interesting about what you're saying is, you take a look at Sweden, and it is in Europe. It's part of Europe. It's part of the European Union. They have their own government there, but they're part of this bigger confederation of other countries, but they're autonomous, right?
Right.
It's sort of how the states are supposed to work. Right. It's actually it's a better analogy to say that they're more like a state in our union, because they're the size of a state. Every country there is about the size of one of our states anyhow. And this government for that homogenized unit right there is exactly how the states are supposed to work. It is a great analogy, Barry. I mean, look at Utah, for example. I mean, they're the Mormon religion the reason the laws are the way that they are there is because you've got all of those people that think a lot alike because of Mormonism, and that's how the states are supposed to work. It's not one size fits all. The federal government is always trying to put a one size fits all kind of thing over our entire country,
like minimum wage, which is the most ridiculous thing.
I mean, it's
a perfect example of why it should be governed state by state.
You're exactly right. And it's a perfect example of how the federal government just doesn't have the wherewithal to try to figure that out. I mean, an elementary school kid could figure out the math on this, and yet our federal government can't figure out that $3 or $5 or $15 is different in Iowa than it is in Los Angeles or New York City.
Right.
I mean, you're one place you can maybe feed yourself, and the other places you're going to starve to death. So it's businesses have figured that out. They pay people differently depending on where they live. But we don't have that here. It's funny how we don't have that here.
Hey, right. If I were to back up a little bit, I see a note of mine in my current events that coincides with what I was talking about the kids that have grown up since 9/11.
Yes. Interesting.
So they're around 18 to 20 years old, that age. Did you know that? Have you heard about the studies about men giving up on college?
I've seen where I just saw a report this week where it was like some amazing figure of how men are completely outnumbered by women now on college campuses.
Oh yeah. So if you ask me why it is, because I read an article or two on this, and I got a lot of, we don't really know why this is. It's like, come on, man. First of all, you've been demonizing males, especially white males, for several years now. Critical race theory.
Yes.
Imagine going to a college and you're really pretty insecure at that age anyway, and then people are filling you with this anxiety, and you're being looked down. Imagine sitting in a class hearing about the white male patriarchy and how horrible it is and keeping people down. So that, I'd say, that's a really big reason. Number two, I got three reasons. It's just me.
Yeah.
Outrageous tuition. Outrageous tuition.
Kidding.
And it doesn't have the payback. It's not worth it. You do the math on that one. It's like, why would it? I get saddled with 50,000 or 100,000 in debt.
Crazy. It's crazy. Yeah.
And because it's becoming pretty well known how little education you're actually getting these days in college. So I think colleges are really on the way out. Number three, that's what I just said, is you just don't learn squat anymore. And I'm going to tell you what, I'm surprised this hasn't already happened, but it's going to happen. I don't know if I've said it on the show before, but to use this analogy, if you're interested in becoming a psychologist, if Jordan Peterson had a really polished and optimized course online versus you could go and start at a local community college or Kent State or wherever, getting taught by whoever, what are you going to do? Where do you think your better education is going to come from?
Jordan Peterson.
Yeah. And so now that course is available to everybody of college of any age, but so this is going to happen with every subject matter. Now you're going to say it's a shame. I mean, that people are not going to have the brick and mortar socialization, that I get that. I totally get that, but you can't stop what's going to happen. It's going to happen. And colleges are making it happen faster. They're pushing it by being so ineffective, so overpriced, and critical race theory driven. So this is going to happen, man. Everything's going to go online.
It's so interesting what you're talking about right now. I totally agree. There's an evolution that's happening in higher education right now.
Has to happen.
I've been reading this Kent State book. I'm almost done. I've got like 30 pages left. It's like a 600.
You're reading like 3 books at a time.
I sometimes more, but this one has been. I've had a hard time putting it down. It's so apropos to everything that's happening today. You would think this guy wrote this about a college campus today because they're having the same kinds of problems, but he's talking about a lot of the problems in higher education towards the end of the book. And he's talking about how this, first off, that he says the root of all of this is Marxism, and really where this is all coming from on our college campuses.
Sure, it is.
And the young people have grievances, right? Every young person, I had grievances, we have grievances. And you would think that, and in his case, he was talking about the Vietnam War. Well, if we were to end the Vietnam War today, would these protests stop? And he said, no. That's not the nature of this Marxist movement that's happening. They're never going to be satisfied. They're always going to find something to have a grievance about, to tear apart the unity that's happening, because their ultimate goal is to tear this thing down, burn it down. That's what they're trying to do. And, we're seeing this today in a very glorified fashion. One of the other things he was talking about is how the danger of limiting diverse thought on campus, and how that will produce young people that can't actually think for themselves and figure out things in society. They won't have that higher level of critical thinking, critical awareness.
Absolutely.
And this leads to the professional class dumbing down, which is, these are the people that take care of your society. So it's a symptom of a crashing society, actually. And something's got to be done to fix it. When we look at history and take a look at some of these totalitarian nations that have tried to do this type of thing before, what typically happens is these college campuses become bastions of criminal activity. In fact, they actually become the nexus for revolution. And we're seeing a lot of that. We've seen this kind of thing happening over the past year and a half with all of these riots and this turmoil that's happening on campus. It seems like kids aren't actually learning anything except for some type of propaganda, some dogma. And we've seen this in history before, where it completely brings down a society where doctors don't know how to practice medicine. lawyers don't know how to get you off of a charge that you've been unfairly charged in. And we see the symptoms of that whole thing all over the place, where we keep lowering our standards of education. Here in California, for example, one of the things they just did was they lowered the bar exam requirements for Black people.
We talked about
and
that.
It's like, okay, so why would you first off, if I'm needing a lawyer, doesn't that make me think
now you got to be racist? You got to make a judgment.
It puts you right there. That's a terrible thing to do to Black people.
It's horrible. This is as bad as another headline that I put down. Google staff undergoing, quote, anti-racism training, which promotes CRT. Google, they're gigantic, of course. They tell employees to, in quotes, identify their privileged identities, end quote, and rank themselves on a hierarchy. They just told you to be racist.
That's exactly right. The funny part about this is that the most racist things that are happening are in the name of social justice.
And just the final, I have links to these, of course. The final statement is they also claim that, in quotes, MAGA, Make America Great Again, is socially acceptable white supremacy. Jeez, dude.
I'm telling you, Barry,
that's so extreme. It's so extreme.
Things are very dark right now. We really have a time that we're living in that's very dark. Out here in California right now, Barry, we've got this governor race that's happening, the recall actually, and it is ugly. It is so ugly. I don't know if you saw.
I read a bit about what I can. Larry Elder's been in the news a lot. Yeah, did you see that wacko with the blue hair or red hair or whatever that girl try to throw an egg at him?
Well, she was actually, that was yesterday. She was, I think it was the day before yesterday. Anyway, she was dressed, she had a gorilla.
Right. I forgot about that. Could you imagine if the situations were reversed? What the mainstream media would do?
Remember when Roseanne Barr said that Valerie Jarrett looked like she was from Planet of the Apes, and then it was just like ruined her. They ruined her
whole life.
Took her off of the whole Roseanne Barr, and you never see her anymore. She's she's been eliminated. But yet, you got a situation like this, and it seems to be completely acceptable. I mean, here is a Black person, and the Los Angeles Times actually said that he was the black face of white supremacy.
Oh God, that makes my stomach turn.
Now, let's just think about that for a second.
Do we have
the
to?
Los Angeles Times? I know the Los Angeles Times you've got so many woke people over there that are all for social justice and all this kind of stuff. If you're a Black person and you say something, it's got to be important because you're Black, unless you're a conservative. If you're a conservative, then
if you're saying what you're supposed to say,
that's right.
Oh, it's sickening.
It is sickening. And here's the thing, though, is that I personally think that this helps Larry Elder. First off, I think Larry Elder is a person that understands that this was bound to happen, right? I mean, we live in this society. I know Larry Elder is a pretty smart guy.
He's really smart.
I'm sure this didn't hurt his feelings. Nor do I think that he took that personally in any way. By the way, they were shot at by pellet guns too.
Wow.
And so I also think that he knows that he can use this as his advantage, because what this actually does is prove the hypocrisy of the whole Newsom campaign. And I mean, here's Newsom talking about underprivileged, talking about women, talking about Blacks and Hispanics. Yet those are all the people that have gotten the short end of the stick here in California from his administration. And
it's a standard playbook.
And I think these kinds of things expose who they really are, what kind of people are really being attracted to to their message. And I think it might shock some people that were kind of, I don't know which way to go. I think this helps people get off of that ledge and jump on one side or the other. So I'd be using that in my campaign. It's just look at what's happening. We're we're working to change this type of thing here, because California.
I hope you're right.
California is supposed to be a place where it doesn't matter what color you are. And what Larry Elder is proving is that no, that's not really the case. We've got a political problem here in this state, and it's very evident through those kinds of things.
If California could rectify the situation, in other words, get Newsom out of there, the emperor, and Larry Elder is, you just listen to the guy talk for 1 minute and you realize, man, all the lights are on in everyone's home, and so he could bring a lot of common sense. And what worries me about California is people are very easily manipulated with the trigger words. But if they could get beyond that and listen to Elder for 5 minutes, he comes in, and because he won't be extreme, he'll just go with what I worry about him is having to work within a framework that will try to turn on him at all times.
Well, that's there's that going to happen.
So that's a uphill battle all the way. But if this could happen and some common sense could get back in there, and maybe it's even inspiring to straighten out that cesspool known as San Francisco. And from there, Portland, Seattle and Washington, Chicago with Illinois, these kind of places, New York, to say the least, maybe that there could be a movement where we start straightening these places out. Because what do we see? What's the common denominator? Really high crime, total chaos and anarchy.
Filth, homelessness, drug situation. It's all here. We got it all here in California. What's interesting is Newsom's pulling out the big guns now. We had Elizabeth Warren here. She's been big guns person, but now Obama is involved.
I've seen that.
And I saw the first Obama commercial yesterday, and I thought it was really interesting to see Obama, the first Black president, going after Larry Elder, who is potentially the first Black governor of California. And associating Larry Elder with Donald Trump, and they showed a picture of them standing next to each other and everything. I would just demonize the guy. This guy is going to be the worst choice, and Gavin Newsom's been taking care of California. No, he hasn't. He's not been taken care of. What a lie that is.
And everybody knows that.
I wonder if everybody knows that, because if it comes from Obama, does it mean something different? I just don't know.
Boy, Obama people, there is bought into the deity, the deification of him, the godlike image of him, as they are the hate for Donald Trump. Their feelings, their emotions have been hijacked.
They really have. I mean, it's really something how this has all worked.
I just wanted to quickly say, because we were talking about Newsom before it turned away from that. I wanted to say that Justin Trudeau, once again, I talked about him last. Oh boy. I talked about him last week with his. What was it again? She-enomics, or no, the she session.
Oh my gosh.
Instead of recession, session, and the she-covery rather than recovery. What an idiot this guy is.
What a panderer.
A total panderer. So he was getting pelted with gravel by protesters at a campaign stop during this last week. And he was saying in his campaign, quote, "Yes, there's a small fringe element in this country, of course, Canada, that is angry, that doesn't believe in science, that is lashing out with racist, misogynistic attacks." And just throws every buzzword in there. And so this is exactly, isn't he just like a total parody of what Newsom is in California?
Oh, also
the whole movement.
This is, I mean, they're all on the same page, because we had the same thing happen with Biden this week, where he pulls into New Jersey, right? He's going in there because global warming caused this whole hurricane, and they're all using that hurricane to get that $3.5 trillion thing passed. That's what's really going on. So here comes Biden with his caravan, and people in New Jersey are yelling, murderer, you left people behind. My son died over there, and for what? Wow. You left those, and it's ugly, right? So then he goes to his campaign or speech, or I guess it's not a campaign speech, right. It's his speech, and it's all about global warming, right? Because he's made a switch here. We talked about this, and he says that the people that were heckling him. Well, first he mischaracterized. Oh, the people, they're so happy. They said they yelled "thank you" to me, is what he said. They were yelling, and then he said that there were some people that were yelling some bad stuff, but they're not from here. They don't understand global warming. They're attacking me because they're saying that I'm spending too much money on this global. It wasn't about global warming. Right. It's a complete lie. They were calling him a murderer. It had nothing to do with global warming. It's Afghanistan. They are trying to get, and so this is just like Justin Trudeau. It's you can't face true criticism. You got to demonize the people. You got to, and just outright lie about it is absolutely crazy. The fact is, right now, Biden can't get away from this Afghanistan thing fast enough, and they're doing every possible thing that they can to change that subject now away from it. Biden's approval rating is down below 40% for the first time.
Yeah, I saw that, and Harris, of course, is even worse than that.
Yeah, and also right now, let's see, it says the Zogby poll finds that a fifth of likely U.S. voters who voted for Mr. Biden are now sorry that they chose him to lead the country. Yeah. So you got these things that are happening right now in the background with this whole Afghanistan thing. A lot of his base is turning on him. Many of them are military families.
It's not even a year in.
Yeah, not even a year in. And so yesterday's speech, if you haven't seen it, I encourage you to watch it. But I got to tell you, this is a tough speech to get through. And I have to tell you that at the end of the speech, I had a very dark feeling. I felt anxiety afterwards. I've never actually heard a president speak the way that he is speaking about American citizens. He begins this speech by saying that we're all very upset with the unvaccinated. He basically points to the unvaccinated and says that it is a pandemic of the unvaccinated, and that they are causing a threat to America, and that their resistance is causing all kinds of problems here, and that his patience has run out, and he is now going to start to do these mandates. And it was very tough talk through this whole thing. He seemed, a lot of commentary today has a theme of he sounded more aggressive towards the unvaccinated than towards the Taliban. He said he said a lot of things. Many of the things that he said about the economy seemed to be overstated about how well that they're doing. It's just, it was totally, and I mentioned this before. It's us against them. It was basically what the speech was. He's talking about the 80 million that have not been vaccinated yet, and and now he's going to force them to be vaccinated by either having them do this through their jobs or get fired. And he's actually done this for the federal government, which he has authority to do for the federal government. I think it's they gave them something like 75 days to be vaccinated or lose their jobs. I believe there's something like 500,000 federal employees that have not been vaccinated yet. So they're all on the chopping block. That is a giant amount of people right there. We're going to see what happens there. But the New York Times just came out with an article this week that said that vaccinated people have just 1 in 5,000 chance of contracting COVID. So I just wonder about this speech, Barry.
Always different. Those facts and figures. I tell you, listening to podcasts all the time, which is, you get so much more in-depth information than you do sound bites off of news broadcasts. And man, everybody's just talking about all these different facts and figures, like what's real, what's not. They're just changing, but all day.
I agree. I agree. I mean, you don't know what to believe. It's just like everybody's got some kind of fact or a figure. But my point on this is that, and this is the confusing part for me. If I'm vaccinated, why am I, and this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated, then why am I so upset with the unvaccinated if I'm vaccinated?
Right. Well, right.
I think it goes back to your story of, you don't know what to believe, because as soon as they tell you get vaccinated, it's the safest thing, another person comes on and tells you you're going to get COVID even though you're vaccinated and you're carrying all these diseases and all this stuff. And it's like, well, what do I believe? Should I get? I think the message is so convoluted and so confusing now. And now you're going to try to force people to do it or lose their jobs. I've never ever seen anything like this in America ever.
No, but we haven't seen a pandemic in our lifetime either.
Well, so
it's just all crazy timing too. Like,
yeah,
it's a very volatile time even without the pandemic. And then we get in Trump's last year, and then all of a sudden we get this pandemic. And here's another, I got a couple things I wanted to try to get rid of this dog.
What the heck?
Oh my God. All right. So the dog ripped the cord out of the mic. When we get done with this podcast, I'm going to find some torn up plants downstairs. He's been on fire. He's like the Tasmanian devil. I wanted to say to you though, ask you, like, what I worry about, everyone's so down on Biden, of course. What did anyone expect? I mean, as soon as he got the nomination, it was like, oh my God. But then you got Trump on the other side. Well, I really, really don't expect Biden to make it through these 4 years, one way or another. I don't see it happen, which means we got Harris, which is, oh my God, bad. Now, Trump says I think he said he's going to run again. Oh, and I know he's going to, he is.
Yeah, he's running.
Are we going to go through yet another clown show election like this? We can't I always say Tulsi Gabbard, but I don't care who it is. There's so many. Larry Elder. I wish he would run for president.
Me too.
Yeah.
He'd be a great president.
So anyways, but Trump does exactly, for the far right, what Biden or Obama does for the far left is, they love him so much because the left hates him so much. And there's all of that hysteria. And,
I can't stand it.
I can't either. So I really hope we have somebody, we can actually find somebody credible to run the Republican ticket or an independent ticket.
Yeah, I'd like to see that too. There's a few people that I think might be good, but the problem is here, Barry, is that there's a machine now, and it's a smear machine, and it almost. My concern is that whoever it is going to run into the smear machine, and they're going to have to overcome a whole lot. And I say that because,
for sure,
you take a look at Donald Trump, for example. Everybody loved Donald Trump on the left and the right when he was running that show, The Apprentice. Everybody, I mean, he had the number one show.
I don't think everyone loved him.
Well, he had the number one show. Let's put it that way. He was very popular on both sides. Okay. Yeah. Nobody hated him. Yeah. I mean, and he was constantly talking about politics before he even started running, but nobody seemed to hate him until he ran. And then the smear machine.
Oh, immediately.
I mean, I was reading a CNN article just the other day, and they were talking about Kellyanne Conway. By the way, did you hear that that Biden asked several Trump appointees, they're appointed for 3 years, to resign yesterday, and they were associated with the military? Yes. I think that's interesting because, we had such a debacle in Afghanistan, and lots of people should be fired, but he went for the Trump people.
The unifier.
I was going somewhere.
Well, Kellyanne Conway, you were talking about.
I brought her up for some reason. Totally lost it. Kellyanne Conway. Why were we talking about Kellyanne Conway?
Well, you were talking about because Biden fired those the Trump people from whatever that was, something to do with the military, like consultants or something.
You know what? I totally lost it, but I got another story up here on cue that
go ahead.
I wonder if you've seen this one, Barry. This is the National Archives slaps harmful content warning on the Constitution.
Wow. Whoa, tell me about that.
So the National Archives records span the history of the United States, and it is our charge. I'm talking the head of the National Archives. It is our charge to preserve and make available these historical records. As a result, some of the materials posted here may reflect outdated, biased, offensive, and possibly violent views and opinions. In addition, some of the materials may relate to violent or graphic events and are preserved for their historical significance. And it goes on to talk about the way that it refers to women and different ethnicities and race and everything. But this isn't the first time the National Archives has catered to the leftist view of history. In June, the National Archives Racism Task Force, which I didn't even know they had, claimed that the Archives Rotunda, which houses founding documents, is an example of structural racism. The task force also pushed to include trigger warnings around displays of the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution,
trigger warnings,
and the Bill of Rights, which are all in the rotunda. What do you think about that?
I don't think that it's worth commenting on. I
love that.
I'm so appalled. I mean, by everybody's intelligence should be so insulted by that. But what was it last week? It was the CDC that was telling us renaming everything, all of these ridiculous things.
You can't be a poor person, poor people.
Who's the CDC to even approach that?
I thought it was about diseases and stuff, right? Like, now we got to do this. Okay, here's another one that this week has just been astounding. The things that are in the news, it's overwhelming, Barry.
It is.
Taliban caretaker government. Okay, so the 4 of 5 Gitmo detainees swapped for Bergdahl. Remember, was the name the Bergdahl exchange that Obama did, Corporal Bergdahl or whatever he was? The Taliban had him. Well, these guys get leadership positions in the Taliban government. So I just think that that's pretty crazy. The Taliban now has a government that's in charge of all of Afghanistan, and these people that escaped or that Obama let go from Gitmo, Guantanamo Bay, are now all in charge of the Taliban over there, which is really crazy. But what we also saw over there were these protests. Did you see that?
No.
So women are protesting in Afghanistan.
I think they shut that down real quick.
They did. And it's really sick, because what happened was these Taliban fighters came in with these rubber like whips and they just whipped the crap out of these women.
Oh, God.
Several reporters were captured and beaten. We're not sure if any of them were killed, but we've seen pictures now of some of the reporters on their bare backs, and they are lit up, man. They whipped them. They just whipped the skin right off of them.
That's horrifying.
Let's see here. CNN seems to be surprised to discover, this is from CNN, no women or members from Afghan's ousted leadership were selected for acting cabinet positions or named to advisory roles, in spite of the Taliban's promise of an inclusive government and more moderate form of Islamic rule. So that's what the protest was about by these women. They were standing up for their rights. And I just go back to what you said earlier about people that were born after 9/11. And if you take a look at these pictures of the women that were protesting, it looks like these are very young women. Most of them probably born shortly after 9/11. So they grew up in an atmosphere where they had rights. And so this is even worse, because they're like us, and then suddenly going into the Stone Ages with this Taliban, and all the doors are being shut so they can't get out, and very soon no stories will be able to get out of there either.
That's true. I don't know where to go with that, but I just looking at a headline from CNN. I'm on Google News. Republicans are laying the groundwork to lie that the California recall was stolen.
That's what? Okay. Well, that's a terrible headline. Is there any substance to that?
Here's one. Well, I didn't pull up the article. I just thought I'd throw that out at you because actually I kind of have been saying the same thing as well.
It's a terrible thing. Let me just say this.
It's going to go that route.
Our election system has been compromised. And now that it has, it's going to be tough for us to get this back. I mean, we've got a problem here. And the problem is that the Republicans can just say that now. And the perception is out there now that that's the truth. And we're not doing anything to, I don't know what the answer is to this.
Well, I think that Newsom, as this next article from Yahoo News, their headline is "New Poll Finds Newsom Could Easily Beat the Recall Thanks to Motivated Democrats." Now, see, this is what I've been saying. I think he is going to win this because of the Democrats. They're going to stir up the fear in Democrats. So I think that he will win. And I think that Republicans are going to cry about how the polls were stolen, votes were stolen and all that stuff. I hope that the good that can come out of this is that we do reform the voting system into the common sense system. Got an ID?
Yeah.
Good. There you go. Let's clean this up and get it secure and move forward.
But I don't believe that could ever happen if Newsom actually wins again. I just don't see that ever happening.
Oh,
because the Democrat Party's not motivated to secure that when they can just maintain all of their power the way that they have.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just read this headline. That's so funny. It's from CNN again. Yet more evidence Donald Trump is running a shadow presidency. That's CNN, man. If they can shove Trump into a headline, I mean,
they're so desperate for attention.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, those poor people. Yeah. I feel sorry really, when you take a look at the news anymore, it doesn't matter who you're listening to these days, whether it's Fox News or CNN. You got to take everything they say with a big grain of salt, because they're motivated to lie to us. All of them are. They just have that in their DNA. So we've got to be careful. You know what was interesting, going back to Joe Biden's speech, was he brought up Fox News in the speech and said that Fox News actually has a mandate to vaccinate all their people. The company already has that. And I was watching the 5 right after the speech, and I noticed that they didn't bring that up.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's interesting.
So, okay. Your dog is doing something with the plug over there now.
See you, poof. He's on fire, man.
For real now.
What were we talking about? Got the first Browns game this weekend.
Oh, Sunday. That's right. Okay. So
I can't wait.
Who are they playing?
Oh my God, Merle. They open up with the Kansas City Chiefs, which is
that's going to be
the
tough.
last game that they played in the playoffs was against the Kansas City Chiefs. But they're so retooled now. Like, they had the best offseason. The defense was terrible last year, mostly because of injuries and stuff. Well, we got those injured people back, plus a lot more depth with some really quality veterans and draft picks. So, boy, they match up really good against the Chiefs now, as tough as they are.
Cool.
So, what a game to open with, though.
Didn't you go to a game recently?
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago. So I went to, I forget who they played, but it's preseason. And none of the starters played, or almost none. So that was kind of a drag. Our coaching staff really didn't play the starters, almost not at all in this preseason. So I trust that they have their system down like a well-oiled machine. Now that this is the first time in years we actually have a back-to-back coaching staff that has a second year, so they they don't have to learn all new systems again in the,
right.
That's preseason. Yeah. Oh, it's so huge, especially last year. You totally saw the season go on and the team get better and better as they started to learn their system and stuff. It was and so they end the season on fire, beating Pittsburgh in back-to-back games at the end of the year.
That was cool.
For the last game of the year, and then in the first playoff game, beat them again. Oh, that was so good.
That was sweet. That was sweet. I was watching. I didn't watch the games, but I love anytime Cleveland beats Pittsburgh. It's a great day.
Yeah. So as you said, I did go to that game a couple of weeks ago. Remember, I told you it was so hot.
Yes.
We went to the opposite side of the stadium because there's open seats because it's preseason and stuff, and like the best seats in the house. But it was right in the direct sun on this really super hot day. Just sitting in them, man, I thought my skin was going to melt to the seat, and could only last a quarter. But on the way back, I rode my bike there, and so cool. Stopped at East 55th for a couple of beers and a salad, try to get refreshed and everything. Dude, it was so sad because that was mine and Irby's hang. It was our favorite hang. Yeah. So being there by myself, it was really tough. And I just said to myself, "This last time I'm going this year. I
don't blame you.
Yeah, next year it'll be behind me. But yeah, that was tough. And boy, I went all over the place here. But I realized even at 55 years old, I never experienced this before, losing a friend, having a close friend die.
Wow.
Yeah. So
hey, that's
I haven't known. It's a new experience. Going East 55th. I didn't think that would be a big deal. It was a big deal. It was very difficult. Yeah. And, the whole ride home, just thinking about that whole the sense of loss. It never lost a friend before. It's, I thought it'd be easier, I guess.
Well, it's one of those things where, I mean, okay, so we're 55, right? I mean, that's seems young. I mean,
it does in some ways, it doesn't in others.
I don't feel like I'm old enough where my friends are just dying left and right, but
sure.
But that's definitely happening. I mean, lots of people I've known have passed away, and even as a young person, I remember Tom Bowman, my buddy, died in a car accident. It was just terrible. I was the best man at his wedding and everything. And it was these things are not easy at all to deal with. And I think it's really good that we can talk about this on Over 50 Starting Over, because these are things that we're going to have to deal with. And the fact is that we can't take this beautiful gift of life for granted that we have here. We don't know how long we have it. How many people have we heard of that, like my dad, for instance, died when he was 55. I had no idea he was going to be gone the next day. I'm so glad I told him how much I loved him the day before. But speaking of time going by fast and just the perception, my brother, Scott, came over to visit me yesterday out of the blue. And I love when he does that. That doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah.
But when it does, I just love it. Now, Scott's been on this diet. And
you mentioned that before. You say he lost a lot of weight.
He's lost like 50 pounds.
Oh my God.
And so he looks fantastic. He looks like he's like Benjamin Button. He's not only lost weight, it looks like he's lost years. Like he looks at least 10 years younger now. So
I know what you mean.
He came over to the house like last night on his bicycle, and he goes, "Hey, Merle, I'm outside." So I went out there and was hanging out, and one of my neighbors walks by who hadn't met Scott before, and he goes, "Hey, you guys kind of look the same." And he looks at Scott and goes, "Are you his son?"
You gotta be kidding me.
I was so mad. I was real happy for Scott though, but I had to I gotta go look in the mirror, man. I look like Scott's dad.
Yeah, God, that would have made me feel really bad.
Yeah, almost ruined my night.
I know.
But I am happy for Scott, though.
I know. What's his diet? And is he starving? Like, is he uncomfortable?
No, that's the thing. Is he's got a coach for this, and I don't know what it's called. But he says that it's a diet where he's never hungry.
That's great.
Which it's just there's a formula of success in the diet, which he's tried to explain to me, which I don't really get. But he's very encouraged by this coach. He's like just really been a godsend to him as far as the encouragement goes, and he seems really happy to do this. He's carried that weight for a long time, and now I'm telling you,
50 pounds is a lot.
He looks, and he needed to lose that, and he looks great. I was concerned about his health, of course. My dad passing away from a heart attack at 55. Yeah, right. I don't want that to happen to my brother,
right?
Who's my best friend.
He just took decades off it, added really decades to his life expectancy.
He really did, and it's great. It's great to see. I'm so glad he's back on his bicycle and everything again. He just looks great, and anyhow. Congratulations to Scott.
Absolutely. That's wonderful news. And, we just, honestly, this podcast, we just preach politics for the most part the whole time. And that could get a little too heavy after a while. I just saw in a headline, though, it made me think, so I'm going to go right back to this for a minute, but talk about the manipulation of the media. You've seen how they're, that certain drug that we're not allowed to talk about.
Yeah.
They're calling it horse. What do they call it? Not a horse tranquilizer, but
it's for parasites for horses.
But it also, there's a human version too, but
but they seem to have forgotten about that.
Yeah, it bothers me.
It bothers me.
Yeah. I don't like the deception. It insults my intelligence, and it really, I don't know what else to say about it, but let's lighten this up. I
want to weigh in on that for a second, because I just think that, we go back to the speech that Joe Biden gave about the vaccination, and it was so in your face, but it just seems like they're so focused on one solution and saying, it's FDA approved. There's this one solution, but there's not just one solution out there. There's multiple ways that we can attack this, and when you start to see the censorship that's happened all around alternatives, there it is right there. 25% of the people that have of this population has not done the vaccination thing, and I think a lot of it has to do with that. Is clearly deception happening, and when you got to force it down people's throats. That doesn't help with the perception of deception.
Well, no, Merle, because it's clearly partisan. Now, why did the left have to decide that the vaccine was something like holy, and that you had to demonize everything else? Why?
The interesting part about it.
Rogan always brought up. He's brought it up for the last year and a half or whatever since we've been going through this COVID. He's like, number one thing, he goes, that nobody will tell you, that the CDC won't tell you, that Fauci won't tell you, is the two biggest things you could do is get yourself healthy, lose weight. If you're obese, lose the weight, get into a gym, get in shape, and take supplements.
Right.
Something like, I don't know, 75% of the people that have been classified with COVID had vitamin D deficiencies, something like that. It's something crazy. So why isn't that common knowledge? Take a vitamin D supplement, especially if you're in a climate where you don't see a lot of sunshine, say during the winter and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's common sense stuff. Why get radical about it?
Well, the interesting thing too is that Joe Biden was talking yesterday. I know I keep going back to that. I was so shocked by the speech, but he was talking about, well, we've got to listen to the doctors. And then he puts in a disclaimer and says, not these conspiracy theorists.
Right.
And it's just like, wait, now you're making it so we can't trust our doctors because the doctors are conspiracy. Which ones are the conspiracy theorists? You know what I mean? Yeah. I guess we should just listen to you then about for our health, the president, because this is the problem, is that these are politicians and they seem to know all about our health, and they have they're going to prescribe something. Like the president's prescribing something here and telling you how safe it is. And then he says, what you've seen this, but what we have seen is we've seen a lot of lies come true. These lies, we've seen this, and it's just like your kids, your kid. I remember lying to my dad and getting caught, and he said, it's going to take a long time for me to trust you. I was so pressed when he would say that. But it's true. That's how it is. If you lie to somebody and you get caught, then people don't trust you. One lie will make it so that we don't trust you. We saw what happened in Afghanistan. We're not going to leave anybody behind. That was a promise that was broken. We heard back in July that there would be no mandates regarding the vaccination from the federal government. Well, now that's happening. We've heard lie after lie after lie, and yet we're supposed to trust with the most precious things. We're supposed to trust our kids in the military that they're going to be okay. We're supposed to trust. Hey, by the way, did you know that there's a fence going back up around the Capitol again?
Why is that? Biden about to come out with another speech, and
there's a rally that's happening for justice for the January 6th people, because there's hundreds of people now that are facing 20 years in jail for going into the Capitol, and they want to get them with the worst possible crime.
That is heinous.
And so they're going to have a rally for justice for these people. Whether you agree with what happened on the 6th or not, this whole premise of being able to have actual justice is an American ideal that everybody should support. We should never politicize justice. And that's what's happening. So these people are having a rally and they're putting the fence back up again.
Yeah.
And you just see this over and over and over, where the federal government seems to look at its own citizens as the enemy.
Yeah.
And our enemies, we just kiss their butts. I mean, the Taliban was praised. The administration said that they were acting professionally this week. We kiss China's butt every day. We kiss the ring. These guys brought on COVID. Rather than be mad at the people that aren't vaccinated, where's the anger towards what happened in Wuhan? And by the way, Dr. Fauci's in a lot of trouble right now. I know we're wrapping up here. But that report, that FOIA report that came out, from the State Department, that's actually saying that they were sponsoring gain-of-function testing.
And so what he does is try to redefine it, which was impossible. No, it's crystal clear.
That's what he did. Yeah. And so now he's when the subject is lying, the government lying. This is supposed to be the most trusted health official in our government, and he's caught in a giant lie. And the problem is that this could lead to liability for the millions of deaths that have happened here right on Fauci's lap, and many others, including Peter Daszak of the Echo Health Alliance, and what the hell is going on over at that Wuhan lab. This is why we can't trust. This is why we can't trust.
Yeah, for sure. We do have to wrap up. I have something I'm saving that I want to discuss in our after show. It's the 10 best fall 2021 trends for women over 50. And I thought this was interesting because our analytics say that our audience is more women than men, actually, which I find surprising, but I think that's cool. Yeah, so when I look at this, I'm thinking about Lisa and stuff, and I scrolled through here and I thought Lisa'd look good in that. Lisa'd look good in that. And so we'll talk about it in the after show, because we got to wrap up. Sorry we went so long.
That. All right, cool.
And guys, sign up at over50startingover.com to our email list, and you'll get these links, because we're going to discuss this stuff, but I'll show you the links for it, and it'll come right to your email boxes. It happens if you sign up and go to our podcast. Sign up for our podcast. Use your podcast app of choice, and just look us up at Over 50 Starting Over. All right, see you guys next week. Hope to see you in the after show.